Thank you for joining us at Resist45 and listening to this video. Today I'd like to talk to you about healthcare, and I don't want to get into the weeds of healthcare policy and that sort of thing. I'd like to talk about healthcare on a more human level, what it means to have healthcare, what it means to not have healthcare, and examine what it says about who we are as a nation, our approach to healthcare. If you're a young viewer, I know that healthcare is not the first thing on your mind. But let me say two things about that. First, you're not going to be young forever. And second, youth is not a guarantee against a healthcare crisis. Even if you're young, you need to have good quality, reliable healthcare that you know is going to be there should you need it. So having said that, let me tell you a story, a personal story that I think certainly really woke me up to the personal aspects of healthcare. My mother was recently diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And as you may know, pancreatic cancer can be very difficult to treat, and oftentimes the outcomes are not very good. She was very lucky. She has Medicare, and she has gap insurance, so she had good insurance. And she went into the hospital for something unrelated to her pancreatic cancer. But as a result of treating this unrelated issue, they discovered the pancreatic cancer. And she was, again, very, very lucky. It was treatable. It was caught very early. They were able to do a surgical procedure to have the tumor removed. It had to be done quickly because the tumor was growing. It was a fast-growing tumor. And all is going to be well. But this whole experience got me thinking about this on two levels. First, what if my mother did not have good healthcare coverage and didn't go in the hospital for this unrelated incident that she had? They would have never found the pancreatic cancer in time for it to be treatable in the way that it was treatable. And she may have allowed it to advance to a point that it could have been terminal. Or it may have advanced to a point that it would have been much, much more expensive to treat. And the other side of this problem was, okay, the pancreatic cancer was identified, and thank God she had insurance to get the surgical procedure that she needed in order to resolve the issue. Because had she not had the health insurance that she had, she would have not been able to afford, the surgical procedure. And ultimately, this cancer would have continued to grow and would have eventually killed her. And I thought to myself, I wouldn't want anyone to go through that. I would not want any American to suffer that fate because they didn't have health care, either because they couldn't afford health care or because they had some pre-existing condition which, a health insurance company decided they didn't want to cover them, or because of some neglect even on their own part, maybe a failure to obtain health insurance. It's my belief that health insurance, health coverage, health care is a fundamental right that every American should enjoy. No one should be left to essentially suffer an illness because of a failure to have adequate coverage to treat that illness. And you know what? I think the majority of Americans would agree with that. I really do. I just know the heart of America does not want to see our fellow Americans suffer. And this, I believe, says a lot about who we are as Americans. And I think it also says a lot about how out of step Republicans are with what I just said, the heart of America. If we think about, if we go back to recent presidential history, let's go back as far as Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan had 8 years in the White House and did nothing to advance healthcare in this country. George Bush Sr. then had 4 more years, did nothing to advance healthcare in this country. Then Bush 43, 8 more years, and really did nothing to advance universal coverage in this country. It's 20 years that Republicans had control of the White House, and at times during that 20 years, they also had control of the House or the Senate. and really did nothing to advance healthcare. And I really believe that's out of step with the soul of this country. Now, Obama came along and he passed a comprehensive health reform bill. It's not perfect. We know it's not perfect, but it's certainly movement in the right direction. And Donald Trump wants to turn that back. Instead of looking at what it is that Obama passed, figuring out where it needs to be improved, and then making the adjustments, he wants to roll back our healthcare in such a way that it will be more difficult to obtain healthcare, easier to lose, and when you can get it, more expensive. And if you're on Medicaid, low income, you're going to really be targeted, because the president is going to be playing games with the rules in such a way so that when you lose your Medicaid, you will not be able to sign back on. And if you don't adhere to continuing coverage in some esoteric way, then again, you may lose your right to health care and get signed on with no pre-existing condition rule applying. This is not where I believe this country wants to go vis-a-vis healthcare. And I think the Republicans, and in particular Donald Trump, is seriously out of step with who we are as a nation. I really appreciate you listening to this video. Have a great day.